Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to talk about consent and what that looks like for young children. So education around consent should start early. So when we start conversations early with young kiddos, they're able to develop such a strong foundation in building healthy boundaries and relationships that last their lifetime. So the title of today's session is "You Don't Have to Hug Grandma: Teaching Young Children About Consent." And so, yes, I will address the topic as we get to that point of what consent looks like with grandparents and things like that. So that is kind of the focus of our session today. So my name is Lauren. I am the Family Support Specialist with Child Care Answers. So my role as family support is to really provide one-on-one parenting support around topics that parents face on a daily basis, whether it's breastfeeding to potty training to behaviors or anywhere in between. I also help families connect to childcare, preschool programs, schools, and then I do a lot of content development and professional development for families. I am a mom. I have two kiddos. I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. And this topic is really important to me as a parent. And then my background in early childhood, I was a twos teacher. So these were conversations that I was having with my kiddos in class. My kiddos, I have my 8-year-old is very handsy and touchy-feely. So I will talk about him throughout this for sure, about how this is a really important topic for him to understand as he progresses to be a middle schooler, a high schooler, a college student, and an adult, about understanding healthy boundaries. My daughter is 4. She has a lot of healthy boundaries. She does not like to be touched. And so it's teaching her appropriate ways to say no. Because I'm not as worried about her saying no as I am about him. However, I understand the struggles and the reality of what girls face, particularly when it comes to consent. So that's a little bit about me. So Child Care Answers is our agency, and we are housed in Central Indy. So we cover Hendricks, Hamilton, and Marion counties. We are the local resource and referral agency. There is an agency that covers every county in Indiana. So if we are not your local agency, here is a list of who is, but feel free to connect with me. I can answer your questions, provide you resources, and then provide a warm handoff to the engagement specialist in your area. So because today's topic is heavy, it's a really, really important topic, but it can also be something that is very deeply personal for people. It can be a trigger warning for others. That I wanted to just start with a shared agreement. So starting with the fact that we're going to listen without judgment and take on all of the information from myself, but as well as the participants as well. That we want to respect confidentiality. When it comes to personal stories, I would love for you to keep those to yourself during the session and then connect with me one-on-one after the session to talk more about those kind of individualized cases and share personal stories. And then I'm happy to refer you to someone who can support you at a deeper level if that is something that you're needing. I also want you to be open to learn and see things differently. If this is a topic that you're curious about because it's not something that you had ever heard about. So with that, when it comes to consent and having these conversations with kiddos, but with our friends and family, with our coworkers, with our parents, grandparents, all of that, it's important to come from it from the lens of when we know better, we do better. Having these conversations is definitely newer when it comes to parenting. It's things that our parents may or may not have had conversations with us in the past about. it may not be something that their parents were having conversations with them about. But just like things like safe sleep and car seat safety and wearing helmets when we ride our bikes, when we know better, we do better. And I know for my parents, when I talk to them about these things and how we parent our children, my dad specifically tends to approach it from the lens of, well, yeah, you turned out so wrong because I was such a poor parent. And so it's a sensitive topic to talk about in general, having conversations like that. And so I like to approach it from the lens of, it's not that you were bad, you didn't know. And now that research has evolved and we know better, we do better. Just like safe sleep practices, and just like putting our kids in car seats in the back seat and not just holding them in the front seat. They weren't doing anything wrong in that time. It's just when we know better, we do better. So I did just want to kind of start kind of with that. So with that all being said, there is a reason you came to today's session. There is a reason that you signed up and that you're curious about the topic. I know that the picture on the screen is something that often comes up now more recently, is the Me Too movement when it comes to consent. Permission, free from any sort of guilt or shame. Yeah. What are some other words? I love, Tom, that you said permission, because that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today, and what that means. And for those coming to learn more about consent, of finding out kind of more about permission that I heard both of you say, but also to figure out how to respond, I think, when topics around consent come up with other people. I relate this a lot to sharing. So in our family, I don't force my children to share. I teach them the words around turn taking. So that's fine and dandy when we're at home and they're playing together, but when we're out in public at the park, or we're engaged with cousins who may have different beliefs or different way of upbringing, it can be challenging to figure out how to navigate saying like, you don't have to share with him, when their parents are forcing sharing. So that can be a very difficult conversation to have. Consent is the same way. So if I'm not forcing my children to hug grandma when we leave, how do I approach that conversation with grandma? And how do I approach it with my siblings and their children when that might be something that's important to them? And so it's understanding the lens that we see it from, and then being able to have those conversations. So hopefully the strategies that I'm going to share on teaching children consent will help give you the tools to then be able to better have those conversations, or know what to say when those things come up. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that all in the chat box. So I wanted to start with a misconception. And sometimes when we hear the word consent, we think about sex. So I really appreciate seeing so many people in the chat box saying permission, because teaching children about consent really has nothing to do with sex. It's all about respecting boundaries. So no parent wants their child to be a victim of a perpetrator or sexual assault. And those lessons start long before sex is even on the table. So these early conversations around consent are really around permission. So you guys nailed it by talking about consent really equals permission. It's basically giving somebody the permission to do something then or later. And so that's really what it comes down to. So permission and consent for young children really starts with the material world, and then it morphs into their body, and then it morphs into other people. So yes, I will share some things about early sexual development. We'll talk about kind of those early conversations around sex, but consent really has nothing to do with sex in general. But those messages that we send early on affect the way that they see consent in sexual relationships as a grown-up, as a teenager, and as an adult. So how do we teach young children about consent? This really starts with teaching them boundaries. So it's about giving them permission while also teaching them about boundaries. This starts at home, about giving children natural consequences when boundaries are crossed. So you throw your block, we're going to take a break from playing with blocks. You hit mommy, you're going to take some time away from mommy, or mommy is going to take a time out. You throw a tantrum because you want something, we're going to have a conversation about that's not how we solve our problems, and that's not how we get our needs met. You don't just get something because you throw a fit. So it's really tying natural consequences to boundaries being crossed and finding a way to give children choices within a set of limits. So we may not just run across the street or run in a parking lot. So I'm going to set some boundaries and then instill a consequence if that happens. You are going to either hold my hand or I'm going to carry you. If you do not do those things, then there will be a consequence. So it's tying boundaries and permissions again to the material world with natural consequences before we ever talk about our body. And this happens by teaching children to ask permission. So teaching them to say, can I have a snack? Instead of just going to the pantry and getting it. Teaching them to ask permission to get up from the table when we're done eating. Teaching them to ask permission related to physical touch. So instead of embracing a playmate after we're done playing, using language to say, like, Sarah, let's ask Joe if he would like a hug, bye-bye. Instead of just assuming that Joe wants a hug and giving him a hug. And these are things that can happen from the very beginning. This really starts with us asking children permission or talking them through what we're going to do to them. Like a baby, we want to ask permission and talk about changing their diaper. Yes, I have to change your diaper, you pooped. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to change your diaper because you pooped. I'm going to recognize that you may not like this, that wipe is cold and I know you don't like it, but I need to clean your diaper. You will feel better when you're done. So I'm giving them the tools and setting the stage that their feelings matter. And as I get older, I'm going to ask permission to hug them and to touch them and to play with them. When my daughter's playing with her toys, I come in and I say, can I play with you? Rather than just assuming that I can jump right in. Teaching children appropriate ways to enter play. Toddlers oftentimes take things because they're in that me mindset, or they get up in your face, they hand you something, or they hit or bite their friends to say, like, hey, I'm here, I want to play with you. They don't have the social skills to say, I would like to play. Can I play with you? They don't have the language skills either. So it's modeling those conversations with them so that once they do develop language and do develop those social skills that are 3s and 4s and 5s are comfortable asking permission and asking those questions. And it's really about making choices as well. So another strategy on teaching children consent is to give them choices. So give them the power to make decisions and choices in their life. Children don't really have the opportunity very often to say yes or no every day. So by giving them choices, we're giving them the permission to say yes and no. We're giving those opportunities to practice. We're also giving them the opportunity to choose things, things that don't matter. So it's choices within a set of limits. It's not Lord of the Flies, all the kids are climbing up the walls and acting a fool. It's giving them choices like, what do you want to wear today? Or giving them 2 things to pick from, because what do you want to wear or what toys do you want to play with can be an overwhelming question for kiddos because there are too many choices. So saying, do you want to play with the trains or do you want to build a block tower? Which one would you like to do? And it's okay for them to say, I don't want to do either of those, and say, oh, I hear you. You don't want to play trains or build with blocks. Do you want to do Play-Doh instead? So offering choices. Do you want to wear a skirt or pants today? Do you want to wear the princess undies or the polka dot undies? Do you want to brush your teeth before or after bath? So giving them those choices on the material world, but then also who they play with and how they play, because they don't always have to play with everyone. Do you want your brother to play with you? No? Okay, you can tell him, not right now. When I'm done, you can play with these, but right now I'm playing with these. And then things like doing their hair, painting their nails, what color cup they drink from, just giving them as many choices so that they have those opportunities to practice choosing and practice saying yes and no. I will also tell you that when children make choices, we're supporting their independence and we're supporting their social emotional development, and it reduces frustration and temper tantrums. So oftentimes for older toddlers and younger preschoolers, most of the tantrums and power struggles happen because we've limited their independence. So giving the opportunity for them to do things themselves and make choices will actually cut down on frustration for them, which will cut down on yours as well. Another strategy to teach young children about consent is teaching children how to ask for help and how to help others. And this happens from modeling. So we model helping them, we model helping others, we talk about it while we're helping. I'm helping you tie your shoes. Tying your shoes is hard. You know, it's really difficult to be able to do this by yourself. So mommy's going to help you. Recognizing when others need help. Oh, look, the kitty's tail is stuck. We have to help her. How can we help her? Let's problem solve. And then also recognizing and giving them the words or the signs for them to ask for help. So this is the sign for help for a child who's either nonverbal or a child who's still developing language, like an infant or a toddler. It is one of the early signs that I give kiddos so that they can communicate their needs. So a 1-year-old can say, like, I need help putting on my shoes, or I need help putting together this puzzle, or I need help because I've stacked 2 blocks and the third one keeps falling. So giving them the power to ask for help and to help others. It's also important to set boundaries with our children and to teach them those limits. So also teaching them that if a trusted adult asks for help, you can help them. If someone that you don't know that's a grown-up asks for help, that adults can solve their own problems. An adult should never be coming to a child for help. So also helping them recognize those times where they're going, whoa, this isn't right. This doesn't feel good. I don't think that this is a good idea. Like, never help the stranger find their puppy. That there is no puppy. So understanding when to say no when it comes to helping as well. And so that kind of morphs into giving them the tools to listen to their belly voice. And their belly voice is their gut instinct. It's the feelings inside that tell them if something feels weird or scary or yucky. And so for young kiddos, we can call it their belly voice. Your voice inside of your belly is talking to you. And oftentimes your voice inside of your belly will tell you, alert, alert, alert. So it's getting them very early on to start listening to that gut feeling. So listen to them, have conversations with them, ask questions about their belly voice, and help them understand and make the connection that sometimes that's correct and you want to listen to that. And it may be confusing to kind of interpret what your belly voice is telling you. But when your belly is talking to you and it's not just hungry, so helping them understand those differences, come talk to me. Come tell me when your belly feels icky or when your belly is telling you alert, alert, alert. Whatever you find is the correct language to use at home, have conversations about that. And help them develop empathy. So all of these are really kind of building on each other. We're giving them choices, we're asking permission, we're teaching them to ask permission, we're modeling, We're talking them to listen to their inner voice, to their belly voice, and we're also teaching them to be aware of other people's feelings and emotions, including other people's facial expressions. So when it comes to empathy, we want to be empathetic towards our children because empathy is something that is learned from watching and experiencing. So we need to treat our children with respect and empathize with them, and then they learn to empathize with others. So using words like, I know you wanted that toy, but when you hit Mikey, it hurt him and he felt sad. And then you can ask the additional question of, how do you think we can help Mikey feel better? Helping them connect a action to a reaction, a behavior to a feeling or emotion. You hit him and now he's sad. Those are connected. Your behavior can affect somebody else. So helping them build those connections, apologizing when you have done something that hurt your child, but never forcing children to say sorry, because forced apologies can just be thrown around like hotcakes. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It becomes something that children learn to say to avoid consequences, and it doesn't have meaning. So I would much rather a child first say sorry at age 5 than to be throwing it around with no meaning. And they're saying it because they truly understand what it means. And so first we listen to them empathetically, and then teach them how to be empathetic of others, how to put themselves in other people's shoes. Another example of this is to have children watch facial expressions. So do play timeouts. We're going to take a pause. We're going to check in. Is everyone still in agreement? This is the type of play that we want to be doing. Do we need to look at facial expressions? This is very helpful when it comes to physical play or roughhousing, to make sure that it's consensual. Are you still okay wrestling? Is this a play that you want to do? And then helping them understand and read facial expressions and body language. The child might not be physically saying no, verbally saying no, but their body is saying, I don't like this. So they might be roughhousing and the other child's kind of trying to get away. So of saying, stop, let's take a pause. I see that Mikey is doing this. That tells me that Mikey doesn't want to do this anymore. Let's ask him, Mikey, are you still okay with this? And Mikey says, no, I'm not okay with this. And then using that as an opportunity to say, okay, Mikey, you don't have to play like this. You can find somewhere else to play. Do you want me to help you? And then helping them transition. So some books that I love that support empathy and listening to their inner voice and early social emotional development and understanding what their body is telling them. The book, My Body Sends Signals, is really about understanding feelings and emotions that I am feeling. It's easier to recognize feelings and emotions in other people than to recognize them and label them in myself. So it's all about that, but also about expressing them verbally, while also understanding kind of the signals that my body is telling me. Empathy is My Superpower, obviously a book about empathy and again, understanding feelings. And then Do You Have a Secret, which is a book that really focuses on good and bad secrets. So there are good secrets that make you feel good and there are bad secrets that make you feel yucky, and really around what secrets mean. So it's okay to keep a secret about what mom's getting for her birthday, or have a secret handshake with a friend. Bad secrets are secrets that make you feel yucky or confused. And these are things like somebody stealing something or touching you in inappropriate ways or telling you to not tell an adult about something that happened. So helping them navigate good and bad secrets. I don't think it's an appropriate expectation to set that like we don't keep secrets here, because secrets are going to happen and there are some secrets that are okay. So it's instead teaching them what healthy secrets and unhealthy secrets look like and who those trusted people are to talk about when those situations arise. So that then takes us to kind of switching. Obviously, we don't stop talking about these things, but now we start to introduce conversations around personal boundaries and lessons around consent. So you start to really tell them that their private parts are private. No means no. Nobody can touch you. They need to ask permission, and really around kind of setting boundaries with your body. So we're going from the material world to the physical world. And one of those is teaching kids that no means no, that stop means stop. This is a conversation I have a lot with my son. The phrase no means no, bro, is something that we throw out a lot in our house. Like, no means no. No means no physically, but no means no too. When he's like, can I watch more iPad? And I'm like, no. But why? No means no, bro. So teach them that when you hear the word no, or you hear the word stop, that you need to do that immediately and check in no matter what. And this happens from us also modeling this. So this is where it gets tricky, that when we're tickling our kiddos or we're teasing them or we're playing with them and they say no or they say stop, that us as the adult stops. So this is a very difficult one for a lot of grown-ups, is that we're tickling a kiddo, no. We're like, you like it, you're laughing, but we need to respect the fact that they're saying no, because that's definitely a mixed message that we're sending kiddos, is that no means no, except when I'm doing something, which then tells them that adults don't have to respect the no. So checking in and saying, I hear you saying no, I stopped, do you not like that? And if they say like, no, I do like it, I'm just saying no because it tickles, then giving them like a safe word. You know, you say peanut butter if you don't want me to do this anymore. Or when they do say, yeah, I don't like this, to say, okay, I'm done, I'm sorry. Same for like pinching their booty when they're walking up the stairs or doing things like that. The things that as an adult, we don't see from this lens, but it is 100% teaching them mixed messages around consent. So we want to respect them. We want to respect our children's boundaries, and we want to model consent, teaching them and sending the message that you are the boss of your body. I would rather my kiddo respond when I tell them to do something with, well, I'm the boss of my body, I don't have to listen to you. And then have conversations around what being the boss of your body means, and that I'm still your parent. And so when I tell you to clean your room, you still got to clean your room or there's consequences. Then to have a child who doesn't understand that no means no and that they don't have control over themselves. So you're the boss of your body, meaning that you get to decide who touches you. You get to decide what happens to your body. You decide how your body is going to play, what it's going to do. But also you're the boss of your body, meaning what comes out of your mouth, you have to own. And so those are, again, conversations that I have a lot with my 8-year-old, is that I understand that there are things that you say sometimes that you don't mean. Everybody says and does stuff that they don't mean, but you're in control of your body. You are the boss of your body. So you have to own when you make a mistake. You have to own when you say something wrong, and figure out how to make it right. So you are the boss physically of your body, but of your brain as well. And those are really hard concepts. And they're things that some adults don't take ownership of. So it takes a really long time for these things to develop. And with that comes of never forcing a child to hug, kiss, or touch anyone for any reason. And this includes parents, it includes grandparents, it includes siblings, it includes the person that they hurt when they chucked the block at them. It's teaching them that they are the boss of their body and they get to make a choice with what their body does. So if grandma is demanding a kiss, and your child is resistant, we want to offer them alternatives by saying things like, would you rather give grandma a hug or a high five or blow her a kiss? I kind of set the stage preemptively as we're transitioning to say, it's time to go. Do you want to do a hug kiss or a high five? Like, which one do you want? Or a hug kiss and a wave. Like, you get to do one of those, you're going to say goodbye, but you decide the level at which you want to be touched. Giving them that permission. And then teaching grandma, teaching the other parent, teaching whoever it may be to respect that. And in front of your child, we just simply state, I see that you don't want to give grandma a hug. Would you like to wave or blow her a kiss instead? And then separately, having conversations away from your child with grandma about consent. And this is where, our early conversations in this session talked about these conversations can be very difficult. When we know better, we do better. So sending the message that you didn't do anything wrong as a parent per se, this is just our parenting philosophy because there's a lot of information out there now. And because of that, we have just chosen to do things a little bit different, and that's okay. So this is why we're doing this. It doesn't mean that we don't love you. It doesn't mean that my child doesn't love you. It just means that I'm teaching my child healthy boundaries with their body. So when they grow up to be a grown-up, they understand consent and they understand who is in control of their body. And hopefully having those conversations in that way will give grandparents the tools to understand. They don't always have to understand and agree with your parenting decisions, but it's about respect. And it's knowing when to step in and say, I have told you that she's not going to give you a hug. I have explained to you why. These are conversations I'm not going to have in front of my child, but I need you to respect me as a parent and respect my child and her feelings and what she is telling you. These conversations I find to be even more difficult when it comes to in-laws. So being on the same page with your partner and having those conversations jointly or separately with prospective parties is really, really important. So today's webinar is being recorded so that if your partner is not on, if your parent is not on, if your friend is not on, that they can view this and understand the why behind your choices as a parent. Same with safe sleep, same with car seats, all of that. I had to explain why we didn't put our children in coats in the winter and they were not cold in their car seat and how it was safer. I had to explain why my child was still rear facing at 3. I had to explain to them why when we go sledding, my kids wear helmets. I had to explain to them about safe sleep practices and why my baby needs to sleep on their back with nothing in their crib. And so when we approach all of these conversations from when we know better, we do better, there's just more research available around this topic. That's why I'm doing this. It comes across more of kind of a scientific approach rather than like a blame or you did something wrong as a parent. So hopefully that helps have those conversations. I also know that there are a lot of books around this topic, particularly for parents and grandparents. So if they're struggling to understand this or another one of those topics that I just mentioned, that would be a great gift. And maybe doing like, I'm going to read this, you can read this, and then we can talk about it together. And so some of the books for children around body awareness and saying no and understanding that it's my body, my choice. Some of those books, examples of things that I love are Where Hands Go, that talks about safe and unsafe touch. It's the more modern approach to good touch, bad touch. My Body is My Own. Again, a conversation around they are your private parts, they are your body, your hands are your hands, your belly is your belly, your penis is your penis, and that you need to have permission before anyone touches any of those parts, whether they're private or not private. And then Don't Hug Doug, he doesn't like it. And this is a story about consent. I love it because it's a good social story that helps children relate. But it's really about a kid who isn't touchy, and making sure that his peers respect the fact that he doesn't want to be touched. My daughter is not touchy. She only touches when she wants to be touched. My son is touchy. So he has to learn that she doesn't want you to touch her. And that's not because she doesn't love you or that she doesn't like you. That's not the way that she shows love. That is not her love language. Physical touch is your love language. You know, acts of service is hers. Like, she wants to help you. She doesn't want to touch you. And so what I like about this is it takes that emotional piece out. This isn't about you and your sister. This is about Doug in a book that we don't know. And it becomes more relatable. Another strategy is to encourage children to wash their own genitals during bath time and to ask permission before you wash them. And this is, again, another one of those things that as a adult, and we see it from the adult lens, it's like, whoa, or I've never really thought about it that way. But it's really teaching them, again, that they are the boss of their body. So you're going to get clean, and you're dirty, you need to get clean. But you can do it yourself. I can give you the tools to teach you how to do it yourself, or I'm going to ask permission before I do it. You may say no. And I will say, you know, it doesn't sound like you're ready yet. Mommy has to clean you. I have to clean your back. Are you ready for me to clean your back? Or I'm getting ready to touch you. Is that okay? So we're giving them the chance to say yes and no. We're asking permission, but we're also giving them the tools to wash their own genitals. And kids as young as 18 months can really wash themselves in the bathtub when it comes to their private parts. Giving them a washcloth, they don't even need soap on it. Just a washcloth that's wet, and they can clean their own genitals, giving them the power that that is something that you do because it's your body, your choice. Private parts are private and special to you. And explaining to them why. Like, it's important for Joe to understand that his penis is important, but it's his. It's not mine, it's yours. And that you need to own that and have pride and a sense of ownership in your own body. Which then sends the message to our kiddos that tells them that it's okay to talk about your body, and it's okay to talk about it without shame. It's okay to say the word penis. It's okay to say the word vagina. Teaching them the correct words, and that it's not something we need to giggle about or talk about in private, or keep secrets around those parts, that you should be able to talk about your body without shame and talk about your feelings around your body without shame. So by doing all of these things, we're sending the message to our kiddos that I'm to be trusted, that you can come to me and I am a safe place, and I'm going to talk to you scientifically without judgment about your body. Which sets the conversations up then around healthy sexual development. If I'm already established as a safe person to talk about your body, if I'm already respecting your body, if I'm already giving you the tools to say no and to respect your own body, then I'm a safe person to talk about when those harder conversations around body changes and sex begin to happen. That it becomes an open platform for these conversations to just happen fluidly. If I'm starting to feel a certain way about my body, I know that then I can go to my parent and have these conversations because they've shown me that I can trust them. And you can send messages by saying, like, I'm glad you're asking me about this. If you don't know the answer, tell them, like, thank you for asking me this. I'm going to look into this so that we can talk about it later. This is something that I would love to talk to you about, but mommy just needs a little bit more information about this, or daddy just needs a little bit more information about this. And answering things very scientifically. Our first instinct is to like shush conversations or shame conversations, or be like, don't talk about this here. But we really want our children to ask questions without shame. So one of those questions was my son when I was pregnant with my daughter. He asked how babies are made. You know, that question that when you're asked and you're like, I don't know how to answer this question. I was not prepared for this. I was not prepared at age 4 to hear that question. A 4-year-old is not asking about sex. They want the scientific answer about how there is a baby inside of your belly. How did that happen? So after taking a deep breath, I said, well, babies are made in a lot of different ways, and there are a lot of different kinds of families. So for you and your sister, you were made in a doctor's office. A doctor helped us because we couldn't get pregnant on our own. And we had already read stories about how a sperm and an egg come together, and that's how it makes a baby. So I just told him, you know, a sperm and an egg joined together, and that's how the baby was made. And then he asked, well, how did the sperm get in there? And I was like, oh no, here we go. You're not supposed to ask these questions. And so I had to take a deep breath instead of acting embarrassed or shy or shush the question. And I just said, you know, in your situation, a doctor put the sperm inside of my belly. It found the egg and it made a baby. And he was like, oh, okay. And he has never asked questions since then. His question was not from a lens of sex, which is the adult lens of that question being asked. Not even on his radar, not even on his mind. His was about the scientific aspect of like, but how did that happen? So it's being able to ask those questions and then build and add as our children get older and more aware of different things. And so some books that can help with these conversations. Number 1 is Amazing You. This is the book that we read at home. This is the book that led to those conversations. This is the book that he then knew already about the sperm and the egg in the two people's bodies. It talks about puberty, and it talks about how a baby is made very scientifically and about how the baby grows inside of the mother's uterus. When it's time for the baby to come out, the uterus squeezes and squeezes and the baby comes out. So it's very, again, matter of fact about body awareness, and it also addresses using correct words for private parts. Some parts are not for sharing, then kind of takes those concepts to talk about it is your body is special. You can share your hands and help somebody, but we don't share our private parts. Those parts are for you. You are in charge of them. Nobody else should be touching them. Nobody should be asking you to touch theirs. And we do not share our private parts, which then morphs into the I Said No. So Amazing You is a great book for 18 months plus. Some parts are not for sharing is great for your 2-year-olds plus. And then I Said No is more of like first grade and beyond. These are conversations really around scenarios. You know, you have a friend who asks you to look at their penis. How do you handle that situation? You know, it's important to keep your private parts private. You shouldn't have shame around that. They're just not for other people. And then how do you say no when those situations arise? So it's more of kind of scenarios and talking through scenarios that may happen to a child who's old enough to understand them. So it's kind of like a progression of books. Some additional tools for older children. So your middle schoolers and your high schoolers. The book Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, which is your introduction of understanding porn and inappropriate sexual content on the internet. Maybe He Just Likes You is about navigating friendships when touch becomes an issue. This and That's What Friends Do are both about middle schoolers who are navigating boundaries and friendships, and kind of understanding that, you know, you have a friend who's the opposite sex and they touched you and you don't like it. And it might have started with a hug, but that you don't have to accept that. And that doesn't mean that somebody has feelings for you. It means that somebody's doing something inappropriately to you. So these are really good preventative tools before those high school relationships and conversations arise. So last but not least, some additional tips. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but it's teaching kids to stop their play every once in a while to do those check-ins with one another, just to make sure that everyone's still feeling okay about the play that they're engaged in. Checking in with our kiddos at the same time. Don't tease kids about boy-girl friendships or having crushes. It's okay to have friendships that are the opposite sex, and that doesn't mean that there's feelings involved or that they have a crush. And so it's developing healthy friendships with people, regardless of their gender. And teaching children that their behavior affects others, just kind of blankly stated. So all behavior has an effect on somebody else, whether it's their feelings or their body or whatever, helping them connect the two. And then using books like I've given you a lot of examples of to teach things like body changes, saying no, and early sex education. Controlling the narrative and controlling those conversations, because they're going to start having them with peers as they get older. So you want to control those conversations and control the narrative before they're hearing things for the first time from their friends instead. Again, I know that this is a hard conversation to have, but it's so important. It's a hot topic right now, and it's a hot topic for a lot of reasons, and a lot of good reasons to begin these conversations. If you want to talk through a scenario one-on-one, shoot me an email and we can meet. Again, I really appreciate you all being here today, and I will see you guys on another webinar soon. Thank you.